Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cambridge Arts Open Studios virtual program. I'm Kirsten Swartz, and I'm the Community Arts Administrator for Cambridge Arts. And I'm so pleased that you're here with us today. We have a wonderful group of artists that will be here to present their work and share a little bit about their practice. But before I introduce them, I wanted to let you know that this program is part of a series of programs featuring local artists in Cambridge sharing about their work. And you can find a list of recorded programs and the upcoming remaining program on the website csartcambridge.com under programs. And please also look at csartcambridge.com to see the work of over 100 local Cambridge artists, all for sale. So for all your holiday shopping needs, you can find anything that you might want on csartcambridge.com. The site will be up until December 31st. And it's been up since October 3rd. So it's been a nice extended version of Open Studios this year as we move into this virtual format. Today we're featuring the artist Judith Motzkin, who's a ceramic artist, Ellen Ezorsky, who does oil painting and ceramics, and Deidre Tao, who is an oil painter. And they are all longtime Cambridge artists and have been a big part of Open Studios over the years. So this is kind of an all-star team for you today. They'll be sharing their artwork and sharing a bit about their practice. If you have questions along the way or would like to comment on anything that you see, please use the Q&A function and I will make sure that the artists see your question or your comments. And I want to thank the CCTV team for doing such a wonderful job producing these programs and spreading the word about these artists' amazing work. As well as the Cambridge Arts team that I work with here, Jason Weeks and Greg Cook especially have been very helpful. So with that, I'd like to introduce our first artist. We have Ellen Ezorsky. So Ellen, take it away.
Hello. First, I want to thank Kirsten for her amazing work for the Cambridge Arts Council all year round and pulling this off so beautifully with CCTV. I have, as Kirsten said, been part of Open Studios for years. And if you were to come to my home, you would see my paintings, my prints, and my ceramics. So that's what I'm going to take you through a little bit today, sort of quick retrospective, loosely shown. So we will start with my paintings. Let's see. All right. So I love still lives, and this was done when I was a student at UC Santa Cruz in 1981-ish, I think, and I had a fantastic painting teacher, Hardy Hansen. This is an oil, it's about 20 by 24 inches. Then I decided to go and apply to San Francisco Art Institute for a graduate degree in painting. And so I painted this, which is 4 by 5 feet in oils. At the time, it was encouraged that people paint very large, and so I did. And then I got in, and these are some of the paintings I did then. And the other emphasis was more on the narrative content instead of it being just, as they said, decorative. So these are some of the paintings I did in oils. This is Tools and Gloves, also 5 by 6 feet. This is my son, Alex. Then for my senior thesis, I did a series about states of unconsciousness. And there's just a few of them. This is called Touch It and It's Gone, and Where I Thought I'd Be by Now, also 4 by 5 feet. At the same time, I was doing whimsical paintings of acrylic on paper, and these are a few I did of clay figures I made with my small children. Then I did some, this is Mr. Fleener and the Petersons, one of my still favorites. Then I did a bunch of paintings after I left school using small chairs to represent my state of mind. This is Dead in the Water, and these are small acrylics on paper and No Inner Life. This is a painting I did of my sons, an acrylic on canvas. I then moved to do large paintings again. This is an oil It's 4x5, where I decided to have the foreground and background only be delineated by imposing these gray diamonds and lines and some figures, and I did a whole series of those. This is called The Person Who Could Never Be Known. This is Airborne, and this is Free Fall to a Sand Quilt at a Playground. Then I did a little stint with architecture, and this is actually a building on Center Street in Cambridge. Then I moved to a series where I had underwear, and this is called Airborne. And I did one more where I stole a composition by a constructivist painting called Ellen Ezorsky, and this is an homage to him. And my last painting was in oil, and a small one called Scholarly Chairs. All right, next I will move on to printmaking. Sorry. Aha. Uh-oh, sorry. Wait, I think I have lost me. I'm back to, excuse me, I need to share the screen. This is what, share screen, sorry. Uh-oh. I can't find my other images, so I am at a loss.
Do you want to open up the folder, Ellen?
Well, I'm looking at share screen, and I've lost the one I wanted to do.
So if you get out of Zoom, click out of Zoom and open up the folder, it should show up in your share screen.
All right, so I thought I did that. What's this? There it is, okay. All right, go back to Zoom. I'm having a hard time getting there. Sorry.
It's okay.
Aha, I think I'm back. There they are. Okay, thank you. All right, printmaking. And also at UC Santa Cruz, I took printmaking with Kay Metz, who started the printmaking program there, and she had a class with aquatints. And I fell in love with aquatints, and these are some of the early ones I did with her, which is a process of using acid to dig deep grooves into metal plates to hold the ink. And these are 3 small ones I did. So then years later, back in 2000, I decided to try and teach myself to do some monotypes. And so I went to North Adams to the Contemporary Arts Council, where I did these prints totally alone. I thought there were gonna be a lot of people there, but there weren't. And then 10 years later, 2010, I took a class at Mix-It with Joel Janowitz, where he taught viscosity printing. And this was the first of those I did, and I hated it, and I was gonna throw it out, but he convinced me to keep it, and I ended up in the end selling it. So this was a lesson to me to not throw out things right away. And these are some more of those prints. This is a series of hangers. As you can see, I build on the image. I also, well, these are some more of those, going from black and white to color. I also enjoyed the concept of domestic tools, and here is a dustpan. This is a print I did of some croquet mallets that I enjoyed. Some more prints I did using his viscosity method. And this is a print of my ceramics. This is a door in Venice. This is an archway in Girona, Cuenca on a trip I took, and Valencia. I will now move to my final, share screen of ceramics. This is when I was in high school, in Teaneck, New Jersey, there was a ceramic studio called A Species of Earth, owned by this woman, Denise Stevens, and her husband was a manager for a group called The Fifth Dimension. So they came one day for a promo shot, and here I am, where I pretended and attempted to teach them how to make ceramics. The only thing I have back from that day is this pot I did using brown clay. I also went to Mass Art in 79 to 80, where I took my last ceramics class for many years. I have nothing from that period. Now I'm back to 2013, where I went to Maud Morgan and started taking ceramics with Zach Mickelson, a phenomenal teacher. And I've been working there ever since. And so these are just some pieces I did along the way, all with white stoneware. This is one of my absolute favorites, where the spout and the handle are from the same cylinder, and I just sort of cut them up, and it's very little pot. This is I stole again from the constructivists. It's called Half Cups of Coffee, and I went to a show in New York, and they had something of this nature. Some more I did, still with white stoneware. Then this winter, I went to Indigo Fire because Maud Morgan was closed, because I think there was a pandemic going on, and started using brown clay again, which I enjoyed. And these are just a few of those. And now I discovered back at Maud Morgan Celadon glazes and fell in love with using them on white stoneware. And this is what I've mostly been involved with pursuing recently. These are just some small. The glazes with Celadon don't move. And so wherever you put them, they stay, as opposed to the other glazes I use that blend with each other. That's the end. And here is my website where you could see more of my work if you were interested. And that is the end.
That's great. Thank you, Ellen. We had a question from one of our audience members for you.
Yes.
She says, many of the paintings you did use red in a significant way. Does that color have some special meaning or association for you?
No, it's just I really like bright colors when I paint, and somehow red is just an emotional go-to painting. I don't have any psychological preferences for it that I'm aware of.
And this person also said that she really loves your use of color. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. That's when I went to Mass Art, I was told by a teacher that I was a colorist. I didn't know what that meant, but all I can say is I do love using color.
That's great. You mentioned this a little bit, but I wanted to ask how your practice has changed since the pandemic.
Well, I had to stop from March to October, hoping I would get back to drawing or painting, and I haven't. Then Maud Morgan opened up slowly, as did Indigo Fire. So I was actually taking 2 workshops, one independent study, the other with a teacher. So that was great to get back into the studio.
Good. And where do you find inspiration for your work?
Oddly, a lot of the shapes or colors for the ceramics just used to come when I was swimming, but since I can't swim either, if I really just at night when I'm trying to fall asleep is when suddenly shapes will come to me. And I have a sense of what colors I want to use by reviewing the ceramics already done in my studio.
And do you write that down when you have those visions or notes for things to remember?
Well, the shapes stay in my brain, but the color patterns I do make drawings of.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And I'm sure there'll be more questions towards the end. But that was Ellen Ezorsky, one of our local Cambridge artists, sharing her work. For anyone who's just joining, this is the Cambridge Arts Open Studios virtual program. We're here with 3 artists, Ellen Ezorsky, Deidre Tao, and Judith Motzkin, who are going to share their work. You can find their work for sale, as well as the work of over 100 other Cambridge artists at csartcambridge.com. And you can do all of your holiday shopping there. So next up, we have Deidre Tao, who's going to share some of her work and to give us a little bit of a studio tour. So take it away, Deidre.
Hi, thank you. I also want to begin by saying thank you to you, Kirsten, and the whole team. This has been a really challenging time to not have the same things that we've always done, like open studios and everything. So it's great that we can pivot in these ways, and thank you for making it possible. So I'm going to take you through my studio and share it almost like if you were really coming to my studio. This is my place in Charlestown, and I have a studio in Cambridge as well that I've had for 25 years. I share that studio with a friend now, so I'm going to take you through my private space in Charlestown. So let me just do this. So here's some of my work. I do landscapes and acrylics, and these pieces are all inspired by different New England landscapes that I am familiar with, that I visited over the years, and I love to set up my easel, my plein air easel, and make sketches from life. And sometimes I just bring some watercolor paper or a pad and some charcoal, and I will just make sketches. Whatever is easier depending on the weather. Often it's really hard to set up an easel if it's windy by the beach. This is another part of my studio over here. Here are a couple of more paintings. So I paint all 4 seasons. I love winter. I know I'm one of those crazy people that everybody hates who who says they love winter, but I really like winter, and I love, love, love colors of winter. I don't think it's drab at all. I find it really vibrant and exciting. I love the way ice and grass interact with each other. This is a new one here that I'm not sure if I'm finished with it yet or not. I'm still thinking about it. And this is a nighttime scene, obviously. That's a little different for me. But I've been inspired by the beautiful full moon that we had last week. These here are a series that I'm working on from Aquinnah. You might be familiar with the clay cliffs of Aquinnah and Martha's Vineyard. And if you're not, you need to go. It's so amazing there. The beach at Aquinnah, or it used to be called Gay Head. It was renamed back to the Native American name of Aquinnah. And it's at the tip of Martha's Vineyard. These cliffs are just breathtaking. You can't even believe that this is part of Massachusetts. It looks like the Southwest, but it's Massachusetts. And it's a national landmark. And I did these watercolors on the beach and charcoal drawings. And I was just super inspired by the colors and the shapes that these cliffs make. I'm just inspired by nature. And then over here is a large scale painting. This one is 36 by 60, so 3 feet by 5 feet. And this was done at Provincetown. Well, it's inspired by Provincetown. I didn't do this in plein air. I did this in the studio. So my process is that I go into life and get inspired by nature and make sketches, but then I bring back my paintings and sketches to the studio to work on finished pieces that take many weeks. And this is my workspace here. Got a table and paints, a big pile of paints and brushes, and I have something on the easel that I've been working on, and Cape Cod is a place that I go to. That's definitely one of my go-tos. This is from a beach in Falmouth called Woodneck Beach. And you can see that it's not quite as finished as some of these other pieces. I'm still resolving things about the sky and the foreground as well. I like what the water is doing, but I really want to work a little bit more on the foreground, and I like to create an entry point for the viewer, almost as if you were entering the painting on foot. except you're obviously entering with your eyes. But I like to create diagonals so that there's the eye can travel through the painting and get a sense of space. So, one thing I thought, I don't know how much time I have, Kirsten, but if there is time, I could show my palette and how I begin to work, if that's okay.
Yeah, you have about 10 minutes.
Oh, okay, great. I'm just going to direct my camera a little bit here so that you can see. How is that? Is that okay?
Looks good, yeah.
All right. So basically, I just begin with, I always have white on the palette, and I'm pretty messy when I work. I don't line up my colors in a row or anything like that. I just, I squirt out what I need, what I know I'm going to use, and then I can always improvise as I go along. But I have my my favorite colors. I love certain brands of paint. I like medium viscosity. So that just means that it has enough body that I can scoop it out and it's not going to fall off the palette. If it were liquid viscosity, it would just be falling off and dripping onto the palette. But I like medium or heavy body. And that gives a nice texture to your painting. So if you can see brush strokes or globs on a painting, that's probably heavy body or medium viscosity. I don't know if I'm talking to any students out there or people who are kind of wanting to try this themselves, but this is kind of the language, the lingo of the artist. And I really, as you can probably tell from my work, I love blues. And there's so many different kinds of blues. We each kind of work together in different ways. You can mix different blues together to create more interest or depth. There's warm blues and cold blues. One of my favorites is cobalt. Cobalt and ultramarine are probably my go-tos. And so I'm doing blues and white right now because I'd like to work on the sky a little bit. And when I work on the sky, I feel like I can be free. I can be very free. I don't, something about working with clouds in the sky that ever since I was a little girl, I loved looking at the sky and imagining, just letting my imagination run wild. So with this one, I'm really trying to create sculpture and form in the sky. And so you can see I've got, there's shapes. This is a common theme for me. It's sort of intentional and sort of a instinct for me. I tend to paint in kind of these long ribbons. So I might, start up here and just start painting across. And it's funny, I often will paint left to right. I'm right-handed, but I also think it's sort of a language thing that we're used to. In the English language, we read left to right. So maybe that's why I do this. But I was looking at this and I felt that there were a lot of similar blues. I want to distinguish this shape from this one. So I'm going to do something new with this. I'm getting a little bit of color on my brush. And like I said, I just improvise. I usually have an idea of what I want to accomplish when I begin, but I leave it open. I like to allow for improvisation as I work, kind of a yes and approach to, oh yes, I like this color and I want to contrast it with another color. So I might And then I can step back and say, yeah, I like the way I'm going, or, oh, maybe not. I think I want to make this even more bright. I want to bring the eye all the way up so I can create even more contrast up here. And I don't worry about mistakes at all. I don't even think of them as mistakes. I just think of it as improvisation. And I can always change. I can always let it dry and change it later, or wipe it off and change it right on the spot if I want to. This is my happy place. This is my studio. Is every time I come here, which is often, that hasn't changed because of the pandemic at all. This is where I can come and take off my mask and just work freely. This is a place where there are other artists here, and we all have our own partitioned area. And so, you know, when we're in the common areas, we have to put on our mask, but otherwise, as a solitary working artist, my life hasn't changed that much. But the major thing that has changed is not really being able to show in shows and in public events. And so that's the sad part. But I have been able to show, I have been able to sell. It's just pivoting to online now. So there's nothing wrong with that. I don't mind it. And I've been able to learn new things and try new things. So, and doing something like this today is like an example of that. But yeah, I do long for the traditional gallery openings again, and going to a crowded museum. I love the energy of being with others, enjoying artwork in person.
Thank you, Deidre. I was wondering, how do you know when a painting is done? You had one that you showed earlier that you weren't sure if you were finished or not. How do you decide that to step away and that it's finished?
Yes, that's a great question. I know, I think it's an instinct. I think that once I know that I have addressed each area to the fullest that I want to, and that it feels like a resolved, finished piece. When I feel like, so here's an interesting thing. When you start a painting, it's blank, right? It's a blank canvas. And so what you do is you set up problems for yourself to solve, which is kind of crazy, but that's what we do. We set up problems to solve. And once I've solved all the problems, then I know it's finished. It's a little bit like math. Way. To me anyway, that's how I would describe it. And once my eyes can move through the painting and aren't stuck anywhere, that's another one. If I know my eyes are just getting really stuck somewhere, I know it needs resolution. That problem hasn't been solved yet. Mm-hmm. That's how I approach it.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. There's a question from a viewer who asks, what is it like to paint live in location versus painting in the studio? Is it very different?
Yes, it's very different. I have to tell myself nobody's watching, even though I know they are watching.
When you're outside?
Yeah. So like when I'm painting, okay, so painting in plein air, that means that you've set up your easel in nature, and it's a French term. So it just means that you've set up your easel, and people are welcome to stop and watch. And that happens a lot. You see that, around the city, if you're walking around the city, but I usually am in nature. It's totally okay to stop and watch for a little bit. The artist would expect that might happen. Mm-hmm. You're not invading their space if you do that. They're out in the public, so you understand that. But you just begin to realize that the viewer is interested in your process. And that's really cool, because so often we just see art as a finished piece in a museum or a gallery. We don't get to see the process. And that's what's so beautiful about being able to do live painting, whether you do it intentionally for people to watch the painting evolve, or if you're doing it in plein air and somebody happens to come along. But I'm very comfortable with doing any of it. I just have to remind myself, it's not a performance. Mm-hmm. It's just interested in learning how it works. And and how I work as opposed to maybe somebody else, the way that they paint. We all painters paint differently and are taught different methods by different teachers and professors. I went to art school, obviously Ellen did too. We're taught differently by whoever came before us, and we stand on their shoulders. So it's awesome that Ellen gave credit to her professors. I wish I could remember all of my professors' names as well as she did, but I definitely stand on their shoulders. They taught me so many good things about how to, everything from approaching a painting to knowing when you're finished.
That's great. Thank you. And I just wanted to let all of our viewers know that Deidre has some wonderful calendars and cards. So if you like her work and you want to have more than one in your house, you can go online to csartcambridge.com and you can see her beautiful, there's her beautiful calendars. So you can take those home with you and have these beautiful beach and ocean scenes at home. Or they make a great gift too.
They do. These are a lot less expensive than an original painting. So these are $30 and they're being sold on the Cambridge Open Studios platform. So this is for 2021 and this is the one from this past year. So this is December, but this one is January, February. I'll just go through it quickly so that people can see what they might get if they were to go online and see it.
And as Deidre's showing, I'll just welcome anybody who's new. Oh, we had one more question, Deidre. Do you take pictures? Where you get inspiration, or do you just rely on your sketches or your memory?
I do all of that. So I also take pictures on my iPhone, and that has been an amazing tool to be able to use over the past several years. And so I do collect pictures as, photographs that I can work from as well. But I really love sketching from life, and I also use my imagination. As you can probably tell from my work, I use my imagination. I'm not a photorealist, which is another amazing way to capture nature, but I use my imagination as well. So thanks for the questions.
Thank you. And thank you, Deidre. For anyone who's just joining, this is the Cambridge Arts Open Studios virtual program, and we have artist Deidre Tao, who just shared some of her work. We also heard from Ellen Ezorsky earlier, and we're going to hear from Judith Motzkin next. And you can find all of their work and more online at csartcambridge.com. So next up, we have Judy here to show us some of her work and her studio. So take it away, Judy.
Okay. Hi everybody. Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you, CCTV and the Arts Council for doing this. This is great. I've been doing open studios here in Cambridge for forever, and my studio really missed getting cleaned up this year. It got a little cleaned up yesterday. And I really missed having people come in. And one of the things I really love about open studios is the way that you can get under the table, behind the curtain, to see what's going on. So I am going to switch to my phone, and so I don't have to carry around, as I just broke my rib, so I don't have to carry my computer to show you. I'm going to switch to my phone. I hope this works. And turn off the sound on the video. So yeah, okay. So here we got some bowls just coming from the kiln. Let me switch this off.
I think you need to unmute yourself on your phone.
There you go. Can you hear me now? Okay. So I'm just going to walk through the studio. I'm going to be looking at the image as you're looking at it, and show you the crazy things like bubble wrap hanging from the ceiling, and give you a little overview of my work. I work in ceramics and mixed media. I do some printmaking as well. Also, like Deirdre, a little bit inspired by nature. These images are about erosion, and this one is Toscanini's ice cream, as are these, in which Gus from Toscanini's gave me the ingredients from my favorite flavors, and I mixed them in Photoshop and turned them into a series of prints. Before the pandemic, I'll show you these in a second, but I was working with ESL students at the Cambridge Learning Center, continuing this all in the same boat project that I had been working on for a couple of years, making heads with the people at the center. And once the pandemic started, I started thinking, well, gosh, we're no longer in the same boat. We're each in our separate boats. And I started painting boats and making clay boats, which I'll get to. It's a little down the way here. But these are some of the paintings that I did. And this is one of the boats I did last year. I don't know if anybody is probably inappropriate to point this out, but these are somebody asked me for a Groucho Marx bong, and I made this little series of hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil pipes for some people. Let me continue to the studio. So one of the things I've been doing for forever is I make pots. These are white clay pots that are burnished and what we call sagger-fired. They're made, there's no glaze on them. All the color comes from the fire. So pieces are nested in sawdust and straw that's been soaked in different minerals. As they burn, the colors are absorbed into the porous surface of the piece. This one is a special favorite of mine because it looks like you're a winter landscape looking through the window panes. The panes were created with copper tapes and fired in. I also do a little bit of painting, also inspired by Cape Cod, where I have my kilns, my gas kilns. These are some of the small boats that I made. I don't know where this project is going to go next into a bigger project. And here you see the second of these ceramic and encaustic boats with some of the figures that the students at this Community Learning Center did. My favorite, of course, is this one, because with each one of them, I did a portrait of the person who made it. And this guy just looks so much like his figure that he made, which has a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. And here are some of the portraits of the people who, as they were making their pieces. One of the things I do is I get a lot of broken pots, and when I get those said broken pots, I break them up and I tumble them in sand and water, imitating the forces of erosion. And I've made a lot of them, and it's actually Ned from Indigo Fire was working as an assistant for me, and he noticed that I was sorting them a lot, and he said maybe he suggested that maybe that was the piece. And so this piece is a series of, and you're looking at it in a mirror, so it's about half the size of what it looks like. So these are what do you call them? Oh, slide boxes, antique slide boxes from laboratories that I've filled with, that I've sorted my clay objects into, and then used digital prints of the same clay objects embedded into the side. One of the things you can't quite see, maybe you can, is that the documentation for the slides is in the back of the box, and so I did it on translucent paper, so you can still see that aspect, which I kind of loved, as well as these wonderful little containers for holding each slide. So continuing around this room, and this is the front room of my studio, which has no heat, has my clay storage area and clay mixing pug mill, and my kiln. I'll walk by it in a minute. And these storage shelves have a lot of my other work. I have a series of chopstick bowls, recent mugs that just came out. I made 4, but I'm making a few more. I make urns for ashes, and that's what most of these are. And they have a particular detail that I do where I weave clay and inlay it. I have it in the surface so you can kind of see space through it, but it's closed in the back so that ashes don't fly around. I'll show you a few more things on the table, and then I'll show you, on the pedestals, some more of the figures from the All in the Same Boat series. I did the All in the Same Boat series first for the community supported arts. I did 50 of them, and then I was teaching in China in 2018, and I was commissioned by the school where I was teaching to do a project based on the same theme, and we did a 3-meter long boat with 140 heads in it that were done mostly by me, and about 40 of them by students, staff, and faculty that I taught to do that. And these are some recent bowls, just home from the kiln, in the Sager fire technique, and one of the boats. And about 10 years ago, I started baking no-knead bread, and I broke the pot I was baking them in, and my husband said, well, gosh, you're a potter. Why don't you just make one? And that has turned into a whole nother part of my work. So I make pots for baking bread in the no-knead method, where you heat up the oven with the pot empty and you put your dough in it. And I made this bread for you guys yesterday. If this was a real open studio, we'd be eating it. And so I do different things with them. I'm losing a hold on my phone, excuse me. Sometimes I decorate them. Sometimes I put quotes on. This one is an Emerson quote, "The sky is the daily bread of the eyes." Sometimes I fill them with sawdust and smoke the insides. And often, I don't know, I hope this is the right one. Yeah, often I put the recipe inside the lid of the pot. And I make them mostly in this 2-handled shape, but I also make square ones and big round ones, and then some cloches that are oversized, usually for special requests. And these little guys are French butter keepers, which someone requested recently, and I've been experimenting with. So they're glazed on the inside, and the idea is that you fill it with butter and you put water in the base, and you have room temperature butter kept fresh in your kitchen. So I'm just going to walk a little bit around. It's a little bit of a mess here. My electric kilns are here, and I'm going to walk you back into my workroom now. This is kind of funny. I hope I don't trip. And so that's this room. So this room, it's unheated. It's an old stable, my studio. It's in the backyard of my house. I lucked out when I talked the owner into retiring and selling it to me many years ago, 35 years ago. And so this is the room where I do most of the clay work. It's warmer in here. I'm a little warmer. I have 2 wheels here, a little clay drying on the bat, recycling clay, all the tools. I can show you some tools. I was thinking I would do a little clay demonstration, but then I thought I couldn't really touch my phone or my computer if I did that. So this is where I do my work, and it looks out onto my yard, this little pond. There you go. And on the table right now are pots drying that I'll be disc firing later this week, and that I did not clean up the back corner of my studio. This is a little bowl that a big plate that I've been carving, and lots of bread pots getting ready for the next firing. And these, sometimes they're looking for one that has a nice thing going on inside, but I can't seem to find it. This is a square one. So I think that's it for this. So I hope people have some questions.
walk back to my computer and turn it on. I have a little, I want to show you in the back here, a little painting area. There's nothing on the easel right now. A little encaustic area, my desk, my slab roller and extruder. It's a pretty great studio. I'm pretty lucky to have it. I hope I'm not making you dizzy. I'm feeling a little dizzy doing this. So that's me.
That's great. Thank you so much for taking us through, Judy. It looks beautiful, your studio.
Thank you.
We had a comment from one of our participants who said that I so appreciate and love Judith's eye for organization and structure. The slide boxes with translucent images inside the covers are just delightful and beautiful. So I wanted to share that with you.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a series of pieces that I wasn't able to show you. I actually could show you one of them that predates that. Let me walk it over here. Series of images where I worked with, I don't think you can see it in this light. I worked with wooden boxes, oil-painted wooden boxes, and used the stones, and they more tell stories. I don't have any of them in the studio right now, though, so, and that wasn't a good look, but anyway.
So it looks like you've been busy making, oh, Deidre, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I have a question for Judy. Judy, when did you know that you wanted to work in clay? Had you tried it when you were a young kid, or how did you get into it?
Well, I know I didn't do it as a young, I think I made an egg cup in 6th grade, but otherwise I hadn't touched clay. I did not go to art school. I'm a little bit regretful about that. I did go later to art school, but I didn't go to art school. I went to a liberal arts college. I went to Cornell, and I majored in Chinese history, and Asian studies was my degree.
Ooh.
And I was focusing on art history. And history through the art. And one day I was walking past, in the basement of the student union at Cornell, there was a pot shop. And one of my friends was in there making something, and I walked in and I picked up a piece of clay. And 15 minutes later, I had signed up for beginner classes. 6 months later, I was teaching there. And it was like a full apprenticeship. I learned how to make clay. I taught throwing. I learned how to load and fire kilns, everything. You know, I was so lucky to have that experience. But also, I was studying Asian art. And so I learned about the Korean-Japanese pottery wars and the development of raku while I was doing raku for the first time. And I learned about the development of porcelain in Tang Dynasty China.
Oh, wow.
When I was and picked up porcelain for the first time. And so that's really how I got into it, you know, and then I graduated with a degree in Asian studies and the ability to speak Chinese. And there were no jobs in my field. US and China didn't have diplomatic relations. And the guy who ran the pottery shop loaned me a wheel for the summer. And we had built some raku kilns, and he gave me one of those. And I moved into a farm in upstate New York where some friends had a place and let me use it. And I never looked back, you know.
Wow.
It was many years later I started taking art classes at the museum school and mass art. I actually also studied, Ellen, with Joel Janowitz, who is a wonderful teacher and fantastic artist. And I did, but when I did school, I did anything but clay, because at that point I was already established in clay and didn't need it. I studied printmaking and painting and all the other things that I felt like I had passed me by. So.
What a great journey. That's a really interesting way that you ended up coming upon the craft of it through a history pathway.
I think it's a great way to, you know, sometimes people ask me, you know, my kids are grown, and when they were growing up, people would say, my son is such a great artist. Where should he go to school? And I would say, any good liberal arts school. Because I think that what we study and what we read and what we learn informs our art as much or more than our study of the art itself. I mean, you can pick up the art in, you know. So as an artist, I'm more self-taught than anything else, but I feel it really does inform, and I feel like my ceramics has been very much influenced by art history, by Asian art and Native American techniques, and Chinese form and Japanese wabi-sabi aesthetic, and you know, all of that stuff has found its way in.
And I bet Ellen would agree too. Just you bring your whole self and everything that you've learned into what you're making. It really, you're right that it informs who you are as a person, and your background informs what comes out into your work.
Even your life. I mean, looking at Ellen's work and those wonderful pieces she did of her children and of the things her children made with her, and you know, the way that, you know, as our lives change and different things come in, we can absorb all of those things.
Yes. Yeah. And I think also the viewers or people who enjoy our work find commonality and a way in. People often look at paintings or ceramics and say, oh, that reminds me of, or I want to be there, I want to touch that. It's like an entry point for others' experience too.
Well, we had a question, or a question from a viewer who asked, I'd love to hear from all of the artists about the process of finding their artistic voice. It seems like it's been a journey, as Judith has been describing. And what would you say to someone who's early in that journey of finding their voice? So Deidre, do you want to start?
Sure. Finding my voice came after a dry period in my art making. So, you know, we talked to some of, you know, there's the training background, and depends on your teachers, like we talked about, what they will teach you and whose art you're inspired by and who you look at. It's a little bit, I talk about it kind of like learning music. You know, when you can read sheet music or you can play by ear, you know you're ready to compose your own or write your own song. And so it's very much the same for me with painting. It took me time to move past looking like my teachers, or looking like teachers who are long gone, but whose art I admire, right? It just took practice, and building confidence, and kind of unlocking my own imagination. But it just takes time. I really do think it takes time. And once you've built it, like I said, once you've built your skills and you can play by ear or read sheet music, then you can really begin to run. Like you should walk before you run, right? Mm-hmm. So take the time to really learn your stuff. And pretty soon, I think you will, you're just going to step into a stream and get carried away. And it's wonderful. It feels so good to be able to express yourself the way you want to and stop throwing your brushes on the floor and cursing. It feels wonderful to get to that level. I just say, take your sweet time, be patient with yourself.
That's great. Thank you. Judy, do you want to speak to this question?
I think Deirdre hit on the key thing is practice. I would say practice, just like you just said, just like in yoga, you know, it's all practice. And but I think in terms of finding your personal voice, and inspiration, I was thinking, I think it's Matisse who said, inspiration finds me when I'm working. And it was Leonard Cohen who said, if I knew where inspiration came from, I'd go there more often. And I think both of those are wonderful. And a lot of artists have wonderful things they say about that. It's worth looking at quotes about inspiration, I think, for that. I also find myself, especially at this stage of my life, thinking, if somebody else could make this, I don't want to. I want to make something that's so crazy and so specific that no one else would do it. And so if I see something, I might want to explore a technique that someone else uses just out of interest or to inform my own practice. But if I look at something and I think someone else could do this, and I think, nah, not worth my time, they can do it. They can have that. So to try to keep it as close to the center, to the core as you can think about that. Would someone else be able to do this? And if someone else could do it, then maybe you need to do something else. You know, that comes up often when people copy a technique or an image or something, you know, and I think, well, if they can copy it, then let them have it. I'll do something different. I'm creative. And trust your own creativity that way. Those are some thoughts.
Great, thank you. Ellen, can you share?
Sure. I don't know that I have found my voice. I mean, I would say that I began my early life, I just wanted to be a writer. I mean, that was it. Though I always loved making things, visual things, drawing, painting, clay. And I would say the most important thing for me is that I have to have an element of surprise in what I'm doing. It has to feed back to me, always. I did photography for a while, early on, when you could develop your own film. And I loved that moment of revelation. And that's one thing I love about printmaking and ceramics, is even if I think I know what I'm going to get, I never do, which can also lead to certain levels of disappointment more often than not. But I don't know that I have found my voice. I'm still looking. I would say that always my aim is much further than what I end up arriving with. In other words, I may aim for sophistication and end up with very funky. And so there's a lot of, I have to learn to sort of forgive myself or accept it, or even appreciate whatever it is that I've just come up with, or throw it away.
That's great. So thinking about process as being part of that, and enjoying the process as you go, and being kind to yourself as a big part of it. Yeah,
I agree with that, Ellen. I think that finding a process that allows that is a real gift. You know, to find a process that allows for some serendipity, that's not all about control. You know, Deirdre was saying it too, and Ellen, you referred to a piece where you hated it when it came out, but it turned out was worth holding on to. Maybe you like it later. You know, Deirdre was talking about that you can go back in and wipe things out or add things over, or, you know, that you never really know that it's done, or your eye goes to the place where you know, wherever your eye goes, you know, well, that's where the problem lies. And with my work with the Sagar-fired pots, it's all about serendipity. So I set up circumstances for accidents to happen. And, you know, the pieces are precious when they come out good. And sometimes they can be refired, and sometimes they're garbage, you know, and then they get to be stones. So I don't like to throw anything away, so I recycle everything, all little pieces of clay. So, but I think that serendipity thing is a real, I think it really feeds us.
Yes, I agree. And I'll add evolution, the evolution of your voice or your style. I mean, you think about another analogy to music, the music that somebody composes when they're young may sound different, very different from when they grow older and mature and their voice changes and their sensibilities change, or their lyrics might change. It's the same with visual artists. We never remain stagnant, do we? We keep trying new things. We keep evolving.
I think that's a great note. I want to recognize that we're almost at time. So I think that's a great note to end on. And thank you so much, Deidre and Judy and Ellen. This has been such a great conversation. It's been so wonderful to see your work and your studios, and you've been so generous in your answers to our viewers' questions as well. So once again, for anyone watching, this is the Cambridge Arts Open Studios virtual program. Please go online to our website at csartcambridge.com, and you can find work by these artists and over 100 of other Cambridge artists there. And you can also see the recordings of the past Open Studios virtual programs available there as well. So please check those out to find more of your favorite local artists. So thanks again.